right. Well, thank you very much, and good morning and good evening to all of you. I thought I'd start off with a prompt. I literally just thought of this as we were getting ready to go online. And I said, well, if I'm going to describe industry analyst work at the beginning of this, maybe I should do a mind map to show that. So I did that. I created a prompt, create a mind map that covers the major responsibilities of an IT industry analyst. I'm a former Forrester Research Vice President, where I covered knowledge management and collaboration, including the mind mapping space. And I was the head of thought leadership for Microsoft Office for a number of years. And since then, I've been doing my own industry analyst work at Serious Insights, where we do exactly as it says here. We create market research and analysis. We write reports and presentations. We do data collection and analysis. So, for instance, doing competitive intelligence for organizations, and then strategic consulting advice, where we work with companies and talk to them about their market position and things like that. So in that context, let's take a look at the market research piece. I'm going to jump right into this. I have created a series of prompts that I've tested. The one thing I will say is that AI is not always the same. The results are not always the same, but they're similar. So we'll see how it does in terms of doing my prompts. And you can, of course, very easily adjust as you go through the process. And this is, going to give us a sense of, kind of what a market report looks like. And so here's an outline that it's provided. So executive summary, of course, which I'm not going to show today, but at the end of the day, when you're doing all of this, it's one of the great places that AI applies is that if you completely fill out this mind map, being able to summarize the various nodes and be able to create those high-level feedback pieces at the end is great. External factors, Pestle, which is similar to what I use. And I would actually go in here and say, this is not what I do. Steep, which is another form of that. Social, technological, economic, environmental, and political. And so those are areas that I look at. And I can put that in there, future outlook and predictions, the market landscape, and then the key players analysis. So let's take a look first at the competitive landscape. So I'm going to type in this prompt. And let me just make sure, because I use the node. So market segmentation, there's the market segmentation node. Create a list of major companies in the knowledge management market and segment them by primary solution type, and place this list under the market segmentation node. So we're going to look right here, and we're going to send off the AI in the background to go do that work. There we go. So there is a market segmentation, and here's knowledge management systems, knowledge management platforms, knowledge management based software, and learning management systems. And so there are technology companies that have been placed there. And that's great. That's a good starting point. An industry analyst will do a lot of research. So, we'd go through another round of taking a look at all of those and then finding companies that were like those and continually looking at those pieces of the market. We would probably create an overview report, but then we would also take a look at individual companies and then individual categories of companies. The other thing that we're looking at is market trends. So we want to understand the market. So I'm going to look here at market forecast. I'm going to put in another prompt here. Create a list of knowledge management market trends and put them under. I'm going to put this into the market forecast. Let's see if there's a trends one that has come up here. I can actually just do that. I can put a new node in here, add a child, and say market trends. One of the things I like about this dialog box that's in front of you, of course, most of the time when you're looking at a mind map, it's a blank canvas that you're looking at. And I like that this is coming up with a Copilot assistant to give you that sense of there's a support for the brainstorming process. and it also tracks the activities that you're doing manually in the process. So I'm now going to create this list of market trends, and it's going to go into my future outlooks and predictions. That's one of the things I want to look for. Um, let's see, I've added market trends node. It is not exhaustive. Interestingly, it ended up putting those over here to technological trends, but I can then move them over here to market trends. You know, that's one of the nice things. A mind map is a collaborative experience. So let's see if we can take a look at this next piece, which is understanding market size and growth. So that's a difficult one for AI to actually look at because a lot of the data is hidden. So one of the things you may want to do if you're doing a market report is get an outline for the kinds of questions that you're working with companies on. So many of the companies in knowledge management, for instance, are not public companies. And so they have not published anything. And so you want to have a briefing with them where they give you some background, and you want to have a template for how you do that conversation. And so capture the key financial elements of a knowledge management market and place them under the market size and growth node. And so that should generate a list of things that we would want to have a conversation with the companies that are on our briefing schedule. Analysts will regularly call up companies and schedule briefings with them where it's a two-way conversation usually, especially if the company is a client. You gather information for these market reports. And so you can see here, market value, current and projected, the growth rate, the revenue stream. So you're going to be asking companies about how they're growing, what their growth rate looks like, what their average revenue is. Some of them will share, some of them won't. And again, as an analyst, you're going to put those details in of, you know, what you can know and what you can't know, and you're going to be transparent about that. But this gives you a good template for having that conversation. And then the technologies. So if I'm doing this, I want to also understand the technologies. If I go down to let's see, we had I'm going to create a new node here for technologies. Let's see, looks like our technological trends moved. I'm going to put that back over here. And then I'm going to create a new node for add a child, and I'm going to talk about technology, key technologies, because I know I want to look at that. And so again, this is a collaborative process, working as I would with a number of analysts. So if you think about the co-pilot as kind of a junior analyst, and I worked with many of them who came out of college and joined the analyst firm and had never done this kind of work before. And so you kind of walk them through the process, and you're doing the same thing with AI as you're doing this. So this is now looking for the key technologies, and hopefully it will place it on the key technologies node. And I'm now, you know, we're testing that. So there's key technologies, knowledge graphs, natural language processing, machine learning, semantic search, content management, collaboration tools, enterprise search, data visualization, blockchain. So again, great list to start with. As you go through the process of exploring each one of those, there may be sub-technologies. You may look at other market reports that may give you some other ideas. And again, a mind map is a great place to add those ideas in. So I could say, oh, I don't see, for instance, communities of practice software on there. So I can add a child for that and say, you know, communities of practice. And I add that in there, and then that's now part of this. Now, I also may say, oh, look, there's something I don't understand as well as some of the other areas. So let's take knowledge graphs as an example. And so I want to then say, create a list of the primary features of knowledge graph technology and place it under the knowledge graph technologies node. So I now have knowledge graphs. I'm just going to put knowledge graph node, and it should now place those features under the knowledge graph node. So again, if you're doing industry analysis work, you're going to want to understand the technologies, the features of those technologies. And then when you're looking at the market, you are looking at the technology, and then you can see here data integration, semantic reasoning. You're looking at the technology through those lens, and that's how you compare companies to different companies. Which features do they have? How well are those features implemented? And then you're going to also look at business aspects of it. And I'm not going to get into that today, but is the company stable? Do they have a good growing customer base and those kinds of things? And so you're looking at those aspects as well. Now, one of the things I'm going to do up here is there's a company, and I'm just using this as an example. There's a company perhaps that I'm working with that I don't see on the list. I'm going to ask the AI here to place a company called Convio, which is a knowledge management company, on the map. And let's see where it puts it. I'm not telling it which node to put it in. I'm just telling it to put it in the market segmentation map. It should, as it's done in my tests, analyze the various categories and pick the best category for that product. And we'll see what it comes back with in a second here. One of the nice things is that as you go through with AI, you can usually regenerate the tests and put it someplace else. So here it is, knowledge management platforms. Convio has been placed there. Now, the other thing that you can do is now I have this and I've downloaded a report for Convio, and I'm going to attach that. This is a PDF, and I'm now going to say to analyze the attached file and place the key points under the Convio node. So it's now got a PDF that I downloaded from the Convio website. I went there, I looked at it, I said, oh, there's an interesting piece of content here. And now I wanted to analyze that PDF and put the key points against that item. Now, that's something that's very common. It's, as you're going through this process, you're talking to these companies, you're looking at all of their market collateral, you're trying to really understand the organization. And so you're constantly analyzing this content, and AI is a great way of helping you get through some of that. So here's their key points: AI-powered search, unified knowledge index, multi-channel integration, knowledge capture process, content discovery prioritization, and culture of curiosity. So there was a best practices document, and now those ideas are attached with Convio. And if I'm having that conversation with them, I can then reach out and get more detail about those topics. So that's a very a very powerful piece of this process. Now let's see. I am going to be looking for emerging technologies, and again, if I'm looking at the first future forecast stuff. In the test that I did, and what AI does is often it will come up with different ways of phrasing things. And so I'm going to actually put in a new child here called emerging technologies, because that's an area that I'm very interested in. And I'm going to then say, create a list. Now, the other thing I will share is that I did not read any of the documentation about the AI or the tool. I've been doing mind mapping forever, since the 1980s, and on computers since the 1990s. And I just am having a conversation using my language. So when I say put it on the node, that's a common way of talking about mind mapping. And so I'm saying, using that, and I have found consistently that the tool understands how I do that, how I'm phrasing my questions. So I'm now asking for a list of knowledge management emerging technologies. And there may be overlap in some of these. And again, at the end of the day, you're going to see, the mind map is already growing, and you're going to want to connect things and consolidate things. I'm not going to go through that process today because that's a much more thoughtful, reflective process that may take hours and even weeks as you go through all of the interviews with the companies. Things are going to emerge. Now, the question is, where did it put those? So let's see, where did emerging technologies end up? Um, I'm gonna skip that one, and maybe we'll come back to it a little bit later. Um, but I do want to come back to a more specific one where I'm looking at another. Let's take semantic search for instance, and see how we do there. Um, and create a list for we're going to do semantic search. Place it under the semantic search node. Again, expanding into detail. There is a response time, but again, compared to brainstorming and putting up sticky notes on a board, and there's semantic search. So, if I was sitting with a number of analysts and we were doing all this and we were trying to think about this, and that's how it used to work, right? We have a map or a list of ideas that we would come through and we'd say, so we want to look at semantic search. What does that mean? What's in the market? We would probably have already interviewed a few companies and looked at their literature and seen their PowerPoint presentations, and we're taking notes and we're scratching those together. AI has done that work and gives us an introductory place to start those conversations. It's much richer because, as I found, in my experience prior to AI, what would happen is you'd have the first few conversations with a company in a new space that you were watching. And as you matured in your understanding of the space, your ideas about it and the questions that you ask and the way that you were framing it became more sophisticated over time. And this allows you to kind of kickstart that and become more sophisticated early. Because I also found that those early companies, I often would have to go back to them and say, now I'm thinking about this in a different way. And here's a few other ideas. Not that that wouldn't still happen, perhaps, but I think it's less likely in an AI scenario for that to happen. So beyond the brief hiccup around emerging technologies, I'm not sure where those went off into the map. We'll have to look and see where those ended up. But we can. I'm gonna give it another shot here and just to see what happens. Because this is a collaborative experiment. So let's kick that one off one more time and see if it shows up. This is where I'm expecting it to show up, and we'll see if it does that. And then I'm going to show you two other brief. One of them I think is at least in the test that I did was almost magical, and I'll give you a sense of that in just one second. And I'll give you two other brief overviews here, and then we'll take some Q&A. So let's see how this does with the emerging technologies. There we go. So now emerging technologies has generative AI, decentralization of knowledge management, immersive technologies, advanced analytics, and hyper automation, which are all great topics. So there's an overview. You can see, we've got companies, we've got ideas, we've got features of different technologies. It's a great starting place for a market report. I'm now going to create a new one, and I'm going to give it a best practices question. So one of the other areas that industry analysts look at is what are the end user side. So we work with technology companies to help them understand the market and market sizing and all that, which also helps end user companies decide which are the best companies to bet on and which ones to do business with. And then there's the how do companies use technology effectively. And so create a mind map of current knowledge management best practices, break them down by technology, process, practice, and policy. Make sure they include emergent ideas about the role of AI in knowledge management and knowledge management's role in the successful AI implementations. And that's a pretty hefty prompt. And so I'm going to go off and let it think through those processes. And there is a good mind map for that, right? So, and if I look here, we've got knowledge capture and the processes and knowledge organization. We've got policies around privacy and security. We've got successful implementations around data governance. This is a great starting point, right? This is the outline. And one of the things I'll say, I think most places in the world, or people are taught to think in outlines. I think mind maps are, non-linear and much better ways of thinking about a topic, so that you're not telling a story that starts off with a sense that it has to go in a certain direction. We could put any of these topics at the top, based on what we think is important. And yes, you can change an outline, but because it's linear, it immediately gives you a sense of, I kind of have to tell a story that's from top to bottom. This one lets you see it kind of spread out, and you can then decide how you tell that story. And if you publish a story in a mind map, you actually don't have to tell the story in a linear way at all. The person who's consuming it through the mind map can actually do that. Now, let me take one stab at another piece of this: expand knowledge capture to include detailed process recommendations. So here's knowledge capture up here. We'll see how it does with the parentheses. But I like that it's giving a sense of what could be under some of those. And there you go. So knowledge capture is now, it's a process. You can see that, interestingly, it actually eliminated. So here, all of these, before I put the expansion on, had a hint at things that might be under them, right? So there's nothing under those. When I did this, it actually rewrote knowledge capture, took the hint off, and then created surveys and questionnaires, interviews, document analysis, shadowing and observation, and knowledge elicitation. Great list. I've been doing knowledge management forever. I go back because I don't remember all the details off the top of my head. And I go back to my research all the time. And I say, so I'm doing a talk on knowledge capture today. I want to make sure I hit all the key points. What are those? Those are things that I've captured. This is a great, this is a great way if somebody is new to this, or even as a refresher to somebody like me. It's a great place to do it. So as you can see, any of those can be expanded, and within a few minutes, you can create the entire outline for this work, and start drilling into those details. And now for the magic one. Let's see how this works. I'll give you one last example. So I've been using AI to do synthesis across broad areas. So this one is looking at the taxonomies for knowledge management, and I'm going to ask it to create a new taxonomy that synthesizes and reconciles differences between other people's opinions, right? So a lot of people, one of the things that AI has is all the knowledge. If I'm an analyst, I've probably come up with my taxonomy. I use it for everything. I don't care about anybody else's taxonomy. I'm now looking at everybody's taxonomies, and I'm asking the AI to come up with a synthesis for that and create a new mind map. And on each item in the taxonomy, provide an example of a product or service associated with the taxonomic category. And this may take a minute for it to churn through that. And then we'll do the last prompt here. So here we have knowledge capture. So it's given me not products, but it's giving me high-level areas under each one of those: knowledge retrieval and discovery, knowledge storage and organization. And now let's see, for each end node, so I'm now endpoint node, so it's now looking at these as the ends of those. There's nothing below the final points there, and place 1 to 3 actual products that represent those ideas. And so I'm now taking the entire map, and I've said not just by point, but look at the entire map and add products that go under every single end node that you're seeing in the current map. And I thought this was, and there it is. That's pretty magical, right? So we're now looking at question and answering systems, Wolfram Alpha, IBM Watson, Google Cloud. So every single one of those nodes, I didn't have to do it piece by piece. I gave it a general prompt that allowed it to go off and explore every one of those nodes, and it gave me a real product that I can go out and to the web, find that product, and then start looking at it in support of this taxonomy. So I now have a new taxonomy that I can validate. I have examples of things that are under that describe the taxonomic area, and then I have real products that fall into those categories. And so this is, again, the beginnings of what we would call a market map in the industry analyst world. So anyway, so I'm going to stop talking there for a minute and take a breath and see if there are some questions from you guys. And hopefully this was helpful. Thank you for the hearts. I haven't been able to see them because I've been concentrating on this, but thank you. Let's see. Do you want to facilitate the Q&A, or do you want me to just answer some of the questions?
I can maybe read the questions for you, Daniel. So the first one, what makes AI generated mind maps better than just using Google Docs or spreadsheets?
Well, again, I think I talked a little bit about that from the non-linear standpoint, right? So if you're looking at a Google Doc, it's a blank document and it's just sitting there, and it is telling you that the story you're going to tell starts at the top and ends wherever you ended at the bottom. Mind mapping doesn't do that. Mind mapping does start with a blank sheet, but it allows you to explore in a very non-linear way the ideas and see how they're related and cross, it's very difficult in a linear document to say, oh, this idea is related to that idea, or let me reorganize this. This gives you I think about it as a near infinite canvas to play with ideas. You may decide, as you would with an industry report, that you're going to write something linear at the end of the day. But I also, as I think I said earlier as well, is I will sometimes give clients the mind map itself, because the mind map tells a different, broader story than you can do with a document. And then spreadsheets, spreadsheets are, I go back to Lotus 123 and VisiCalc, and I use the earliest spreadsheets, and those are made for numbers. You can do sorting and you can do text analysis and some other stuff in them now. They're not great at thinking, right? They're not great at giving you a way of very easily moving ideas around. And so, yeah, if you're doing a checklist, maybe, but I even like mind maps for checklists because you can say, here's a list of things I have to do, and here's a list of things that are done. And you can take the items that you have to do and you put them in that list, and you say, okay, well, I didn't get that one today. I can move it around. You could even categorize it by date. And when you're done with it, you move it into the things I did category. Checklists do that, but they don't self-organize for the most part unless you get a checklist program. But again, I find mind mapping a much more fluid and organic way of thinking through that.
Yeah, thank you. So the other question, what is the biggest difference you've seen between using AI versus doing research the old way?
Well, I don't think AI eliminates doing research the old way, because if you're an industry analyst, you still have to talk to companies, right? You need to hear in their voice and see in their presentations that they're confident and competent. And AI is not going to do that. AI is going to give you a sense of the organization. It's maybe going to give you a hint of their products and features. It's going to give you a sense of who's the leadership of the company. It's going to give you maybe mapping out their case studies and some other things. So it's going to give you a starting point for that conversation. And as I demonstrated in the first part of this, it's going to give me as an analyst a way of making sure that I've kind of hit the key points that I want to do when I'm having an interview. But there's nothing like having the conversation with the company or going and meeting them. I know that seems odd, but I used to go to companies and sit in their offices. And again, that context of understanding the organization and how it sees itself one of the weirdest things that you can think about is how does a company name its conference rooms? And so there are very creative companies that name their conference rooms after famous artists or famous writers or famous musicians. And then there are some who have conference room 1, 2, 3, 4. That tells you something about the company that you're never going to find on AI. And so it's a great starting point. And as you gather material from them and you get kind of a horde of PDFs and other kinds of content, with AI right now, it's usually PDFs is the best way. You can then use it to analyze and find things in there that and help you read through that material. But it's still very important to, go off and do the digging yourself, because AI is not going to do all the digging, and it's certainly not going to validate everything. And an industry analyst, above all, has to validate and be a trusted advisor. And that means not making stuff up, and really having a foundation for the work that you do.
Yeah, thank you. So the next question is, how can a mind map serve as a dynamic tool for synthesizing information gathered from various industry research sources, allowing for the identification of gaps in knowledge and the formulation of further research questions?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I did not test that. I've tested it with AI. I did not test it in the mind mapping tool, but I'm guessing that we could have a prompt that was similar to this. So I will gather up again. Let's say there's a number of market research papers that I've created or gathered, and again, usually PDFs. Um, those can be attached and they can be synthesized as nodes. And then you can have a prompt saying, look at these areas and tell me if there's anything missing. I literally ask it that question, because AI in general has seen a lot of market reports about a lot of things, and it's created a statistical set of beliefs in its representation about that. And so again, AI is not really thinking; it's a statistical prediction engine, but it has consumed a lot of content that is similar to the content that you're writing as an analyst. And so that's what I do. I will look at it. I will extract all the features from all the content that I have, and then I'll put it back as a summary, as the set of features back into the system, and then ask it what's missing. I even do that with my writing now. So I write a lot of technology reviews. And if I'm doing something in a new area, if I'm writing a PC review, I'm probably not worrying too much about it. But if I'm writing a new review, like yesterday, I did a review of a vacuum cleaner. I'm not a vacuum expert, but I was at CES and one of the companies said, "Would you like to review our vacuum?" So I'm reviewing their vacuum. So I said, what else should I talk about for reviewing a vacuum, because I wasn't sure of all the features that I wanted to cover, and it was able to give me some feedback on that. So I think it's a great tool for doing that kind of gap analysis. And of course, even with detailed analytics, where you're looking at data sets and other things, it may be able to help with those as well.
Thank you, Daniel. So that's all the questions, I think.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Hopefully this was useful. And I look forward to perhaps further conversations in the future. And again, thank you. Thank you from the hearts, wherever those are coming from. And I appreciate your time.